what do you think happens in 2024 as far as who runs and what's the base looking like? What is a Christian to maybe, go into the voting booth thinking, and what is the path forward for the country in 2024?
I think that's pretty simple. I'd advise people to, first of all, don't end up falling into any type of trope, So the same thing that happened with the Democrats, where they'll just blindly vote for whatever candidate. I don't want to see the right get to that. So I'm really looking forward to the Trump DeSantis debates, and I'm going to watch them unfanatically, and see who seems like they're going to do a better job for America. I'm all for Trump, but I'm also all for DeSantis now. And I think our cup is kind of full that we have these two great
options.
candidates that are going to come up and debate, and we'll see who is going to be best for America going forward. But also from a Christian sense, how are we going to, people hate to say this, but the United States is a Christian country. It was built on Christian values. So who's going to more represent those Christian values of the United States and your Christian values? Who's going to allow you to have religious freedom, have the more freedoms economically, have more freedoms with your rights, everything like that? And you have to look at the candidate that's going to do the most for you,
Right.
Because a lot of the times we can fall into these teams of, oh, I'm red or I'm blue. And as citizens, it is imperative and it is our duty to put the best Americans forward. The Americans are going to be for America and making America number one and keeping America number one, which we're slowly losing a grasp on.
Yeah, well, I think when you said, who's going to do the most for you, I think that's where we get kind of lost sometimes because, when we see about, when people were voting,
Well, let me amend that.
Yeah.
Not who's going to do the most for you, who is going to allow you to do the most for yourself.
Yes.
I'll put it that way.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Because I think we've lost so much of that insight of, it's almost like, what can you do for me? And I love that quote. I don't
JFK.
JFK
Yeah.
ask what not you can do for your country, ask or what your country can do for you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, ask not
There you go.
what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Exactly.
And
it hits.
yeah, it's a very good quote. And
Evergreen.
And it guided me through my life because as a citizen, I think, what can I do for America? In America that's doing the things not necessarily I want it to do, but the things that were promised in the Constitution. But who's gonna uphold that the most? But sorry to cut you off.
Well, no, I think that's great. And, I sometimes I feel a little bit like in my heart, I suppose, that voting for Trump would be in some ways going backwards in a way that, he is a divisive, person in some regard. I do think his policies are great. I lost a little bit of respect for him when it came to his stance on the vaccine and stuff that he was saying of how it's the greatest thing of mankind in history. He saved 6 million people, all that stuff I felt was completely wrong. I don't think he had the good people around him giving him good information.
I will say this on the vaccine, though. I don't think Trump would have mandated it. I don't have a problem with, I do have a problem with them rushing out a vaccine, but whatever. We didn't know the extent of what was going on at the time. So I don't have a problem with him I have a problem with them rushing it out, but the situation, I can see why he would have made that decision. Where I have the problem with the whole COVID thing is the control that the government exerted afterwards. You have to get mandated or you have to get the vaccine or you're fired.
But you don't
have to do this.
And I agree with you, but you don't think there was control that was happening even during the midst of it, as far as, like Trump being in on the stay in your house, 15 days to slow the spread, and then extending it, and then just, essentially being part of the, and criticizing Florida for opening up early, when the science was all pointing in the right direction of, what Florida was doing. It seemed like he was kind of playing both sides a little bit too much, to the point where it was like he didn't really have a stance on it that was in line with, I feel like, what should have been the stance.
The freedom stance.
Stance,
hey, here's this vaccine. Here's all the information about it. We rushed it out. Take it if you feel like you need to. But
no, he said they even said safe and effective, and it's like you can't
say
call it
that.
that when there hasn't been trial and error. There hasn't been time of people taking it, seeing the fruit.
Let me ask you a question. What do you think of all these athletes that have been collapsing and stuff like that. The Damar Hamlin is the main one that comes to mind.
And I think, it's crazy how God works, like, because, that incident happens. And I saw it as an opportunity to get the conversation started about, other athletes in college and soccer worldwide. A whole bunch. There's highlight reels of, this is so sad. Highlight reels of athletes dropping, like who would have thought we'd ever say that ever, and it's not, going all the way back. It's going in the last 2 years. And to see the numbers, what they are in the last 2 years compared to the last 35 years, that's a bit alarming. To not even bring up the conversation, on these networks is a little bit alarming. That, everybody on the internet's talking about it, could be a possibility, yet nobody wants to talk about it on air.
Exactly.
But it was cool because we got to see the nation come together and really pray for him. We got to see people kneeling on the field again. This time they're allowed to do it, because of prayer, which is great. And then I don't know if you saw this, the first game the Buffalo Bills were back. After that, the guy, they kicked the ball off. The guy who ran it back for a touchdown.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
The first play, and like goosebumps, whoa, like crazy. Tell me how it's been. And the guy's number, Damar Hamlin's number 3, right? It's been 3 years and 3 months since the Bills had a kickoff return.
Oh really?
So to see kind of like all these little nuggets of like, dang, like that's God, to see that, it made me feel good. But also I'm hoping that it created a conversation that's going to bring awareness to like the possibility that, hey, maybe your kids shouldn't be taking this if they're athletes, right? Hey, maybe your kids shouldn't be taking this at all. Like
maybe you should consult a knowledgeable doctor that's not taken away by
it's
this
not bought off
virus.
by big pharma too, and
exactly,
it's crazy. You never saw myocarditis commercials either, but now you're seeing them constantly on television. It's like, why is that? So it's like, why is this, all of a sudden popping up when that was never the thing, in the last 2 years, which is.
I will say this though, it could be, no, a lot of people say it could be COVID that's causing all this myocarditis, but I mean, I've had COVID 3 or 4 times and I feel great. It was just the flu, pretty much. And I know that there's a lot of people that weren't equipped to handle COVID like that. I don't think that's the route that you should take with that is, oh, I'm susceptible to COVID. Everyone needs to get vaccinated and do all this. It's, I'm susceptible to COVID. Why is that? If it's something controllable, like, oh, I'm overweight, or I'm not eating the healthiest, or I'm not taking care of myself, then you should take a really good look at that route and say, oh, like maybe I should start taking some better.
But people
care
want
of
the
myself.
easy fix. People want the shot. And I understand. We're kind of conditioned to believe all vaccines are safe based on just our entire lives of being forced to have them to go to school. So I think there's just been a lot of lies that were surrounding it, and that usually happens when there's money involved. That usually happens when there's deception involved and intent and power involved. So I think a lot of people got duped, and that's okay. I've been duped before as well. I'll admit on air I got duped by some QAnon stuff. I was like, Trump's really the president, dog. Like, ain't no way you got 80 million votes. Like I was in that camp for a couple of weeks when I was hopeful that something would happen because I couldn't believe in my heart and spirit and soul that Biden got 80 million votes.
Well, I think he did. I really think he did, and I think that the media apparatus enabled it. He didn't go and debate or do anything like that. He lied about almost every policy that he put forward.
Yeah, he ran a campaign from his basement.
Yeah,
and
it's just people really dislike Trump. Trump really is a very polarizing figure. I think he's maybe one of the greatest presidents we've ever had, but on the other side of the aisle, they think he's the worst. Right. So that disconnect is why I feel like I really hope if Ron DeSantis ends up getting the Republican nomination, let's say, that he doesn't get it as hard as Trump did. It was very hard for Trump to do anything, and he still got a whole lot done.
Yeah, it was hard. And he got a lot of pushback, and he didn't have people on his team. It was all, and a lot of people got duped even in that 2016 to 2020 era of believing everything that the media was saying. And I think 2020 opened up the floodgates of real information, independent media, independent sources, podcasters coming on air.
It's great. It's great that you're doing this, man, because I get none of my news from corporate media anymore. Even Fox with the whole Kevin McCarthy thing. Shout out to Tucker Carlson. He's
a real one.
Yeah, he is a real one. Yeah. Just because all these Fox hosts were saying like, "Oh, just vote McCarthy in, vote McCarthy in." Like, brother, look at McCarthy's track record. Like, look at his track record. He is not voting in line with what the people want. He is not voting in line with what the people want at all. But the people didn't want that what, $1.4 trillion omnibus bill to get sent through, with a whole bunch of spending our money over things that like don't affect us, don't matter. Our southern border's in shambles right now. $0 going to that.
Yeah.
They're
But there's money going to another border.
Exactly.
In another overseas nation.
More than just one.
Yeah.
We're sending the most money to Ukraine right now, but we're protecting Saudi borders. We're protecting Syrian borders. We're protecting all these other places, but where we at home, we're not protected. We don't feel protected. I don't feel like the government has our interest in mind anymore. And that's what we were saying with the Freedom Caucus. Even Trump came out and was like, just vote McCarthy in. I'm glad the Freedom Caucus did not listen, because look at all the gains that we made.
Yeah, real gains. And even just, the taking away the 87,000 IRS, additions. I think that's huge, because that's legit for the people. Because if you have, somebody looking at every single thing that you do, financially, that's a little bit overwhelming.
And they're not going to go after the rich. They're going to come after your mom and pop. Well, the ones that survived COVID anyway, which was another huge thing about those lockdowns. They shut down a whole bunch of small businesses for
good.
Yeah, for good. Yeah. Like it's hard to start back up again after that. But the ones that are remaining, they're coming after they're coming after my IRS dollars, or my tax dollars. They're not going to go after Bill Gates or anything like that.